Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans drift in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. And we are going to the House of Horrors, Truist Park, Atlanta, Georgia, as the New York Mets head to Atlanta to face the Atlanta Braves. And we all know how fun it was at the end of the year last year to make the playoffs and beat the Atlanta Braves to get into the playoffs in Atlanta at Truist Park. Last year, it was just not fun for the New York Mets to be there, except until the end of the year when they made it to the playoffs. And it was the House of Horrors. We all completely understand that. That win to get into the playoffs felt like it slayed the dragon a little bit, right? We beat the demon. We beat the beast. We beat the final boss. It felt like the Mets finally got over the hump, got into the playoffs, and it was through the Atlanta Braves. And now we head into 2025. First time playing the Atlanta Braves this season. Got a big lead in front of them with 7 games against them over the next 10 games. And we are on a 3-game losing streak. We're not playing well. Yes, we're in first place by 2 games. Yes, we're 18 games over 500. But this couldn't be more the worst. It feels like the worst possible time to go into a little bit of a slump right now, going into Atlanta and playing them for the first time this year. Atlanta hasn't played great. They played better, but they're still 8 games on the 500. They're struggling to just stay afloat about a month and a half until the trade deadline. And we all know how quickly things can turn. And we don't want it to turn against the Atlanta Braves during this 10-game stretch. 7 against the Braves, 3 against the Phillies. As I said, we got to go at the very least somewhere around 500, 3-4, 4-3 against the Atlanta Braves in a 7-game stretch, because that really doesn't do any damage, increasing your lead or decreasing your lead. It kind of knocks 7 games off the schedule, and you're still where you were today. And I think that's the most important thing to talk about when it comes to what the Mets are looking at right now going into Atlanta. And it's not just playing better, where we need to see the offense take over for the first time this year and carry this team on their back. It is not just about the pitching that has slowly and progressively taken a step back and got progressively worse. The bullpen not performing as well as it did early on in the season. So the entire pitching staff taking a step back. But one guy who's taken a big step forward once again is the guy on the mound today for the New York Mets, and that's David Peterson. That is the guy right now that I think most Met fans probably have the utmost confidence in on the mound every fifth day. And you know what? He's a stopper today. That's stopping a three-game losing streak, turning into a 4-game losing streak. And that's exactly what we have to hope that David Peterson can do here. But it's not just about him. It's about the offense coming alive. No better time to do it than in Atlanta. We need the bullpen ready to go. It would be nice if we can just use 2 or 3 guys at the top end of the bullpen after Peterson goes 6 innings, because that should be the minimum, right? I don't want to hear about innings limit for anybody. Clay Holmes is going in this series in the 3rd game. You know, you took him out in the 5th inning with 79 pitches in the 1st game against the Rays at home. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see that against the Atlanta Braves. These games, these division games, are way too important. Regardless how far the Braves are back, we know we can take a 10-game stretch. All they need to do is go 9-1, and the Mets have a bad 10-game stretch, and they're right back into the mix. And now it's a 3-team race for the NL East instead of a 2-team race. That's what we got to avoid. That's what we got to worry about. And this is where the New York Mets have to play better. You slayed that dragon last year, right? Met fans are clearly nervous going into this series, especially with the Mets not playing well. If the Mets were playing well, maybe we would feel a little bit better. But it doesn't matter what our record is. It doesn't matter what Atlanta's record is. What Atlanta has done to us for years leaves scars on Met fans for eternity. And maybe last year, winning that ball game in the crazy fashion that we did, one of the best games I've watched in a while in the regular season, and felt like we kind of finally got over the hump against Atlanta, it's still there for Mets fans that it's always that little feeling against Atlanta. I don't even feel that against Philadelphia. I don't have that feeling against Philadelphia, home or away, where it's like, you know, they just have our number. Because the Phillies really never really had our number when the Mets have been good. Even when the Phillies have been good, it seems like the Mets have just did well enough against the Phillies. The Braves, it's been an outright disaster. And that is something that the Mets have to change. They got to change that thought process, that opinion, or that motto of making sure that we can finally get over that hump. And last year wasn't just, just the luck of his draw. And I'm not sure if the comments are working on YouTube. I'm not really sure about that. I can't see it on StreamYard. Let me just double check really quick before I continue when it comes to this. Let me just double check really quickly. All right. There we go. All right. So where we are right now when it comes to this series, right? I'm giving the pitching matchups, if they stay the same, which it looks like it's going to, with Schwellenbach, Sale, and Strider against Peterson, Blackburn, Holmes. I'm giving the pitching matchups and favoring it towards the Atlanta Braves. I think you have to. The Mets have not done well against Schwellenbach at all. At all. Even that game that we won to get into the playoffs, he dominated that game until he came out of the game, and the Mets took advantage of the Braves bullpen. So that is where we are right now with the pitching matchups, and the Mets didn't do it against the Yankees, didn't do it against the Phillies, and are not doing it against the Braves. They're not setting up their rotation for certain teams, as you usually seem to do against divisional opponents that, you're kind of fighting for a division for, or in the mix for a division, or just big series that are important to the overall morale of this team, of this fan base, whatever. And the Mets haven't done that this year. Last year, they done that. We saw it last year with the Yankees, where they try to put lefties against the Yankees last year. They did it against the Braves. They did it against the Phillies. They found a way to set up their rotation for those important series. This year, they didn't do it. They didn't do it with the Yankees. They haven't done it with the Phillies. They haven't done it with the Cubs, the Dodgers, anybody. They haven't set up their rotation the way they want to get the pitchers they want, that they feel the most confident in going in a series. The Mets aren't doing that, clearly. Like, Clay Holmes and David Peterson are probably our best bet of guys going, but it's not them planning that. It's just circumstance. It's just the way the ball rolls. Because you want Blackburn against Chris Sale? No. I sure as hell don't. But that doesn't mean we can't win, right? You want to win every game, but win the Peterson game, win the Holmes game. If you lose the Blackburn game, all right, it was kind of far-fetched considering Blackburn is pitching on the road. So we'll have to see, and hopefully for the best. Hopefully for the best. But the lineup today is very interesting when we look at it. Brett Beatty is having issues with his hamstring. So he's not in the lineup. Ronnie Mauricio is playing third over Brett Beatty. Interesting to see Jared Young in that DH. Interesting. Right? Nothing else is surprising. McNeil's playing second base. Taylor's playing center field. 1 through 4 is Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, Alonso. So nothing crazy there. But Jared Young is interesting. Alvarez catching is interesting. And Mauricio is playing over Beatty because Beatty is hurt. I do wonder if Beatty was healthy and ready to go and playing third base, would Mauricio be DHing instead of Young? Maybe. But it is what it is. Obviously, see the Atlanta Braves lineup: Acuna, White, Olsen, Riley, Ozuna, Albies, Murphy, Harris, and Allen. Again, we all know about Ronald Acuna basically been tearing it up the first, 20, 21 games since he's been back. Everybody's had it down here. Olsen, Riley, Ozuna, Albies, Murphy, Harris. They haven't had years like we've seen in the past. But it seems like the lights come on, like their eyes get wider when they see the Mets. They see bullseyes. And that has always been the case, regardless if the Mets are good, the Mets are bad, the Braves are good, the Braves are bad. It always seems like the Braves stars shine brightest against the New York Mets, especially in Atlanta. And you just hope that that's not the case going forward and starting in a series of playing the Braves for the first time this year. This is an opportunity for the New York Mets, regardless of how they win the ball games, by pitching, by hitting, by bolt. The Braves are 13. Let me just check really quick. I believe 13 or 14 games back of the New York Mets. I know they lost the other day against the Rockies. Let me just double check. They're 13 games back of the New York Mets. 13. You play them 7 times over the next 10 games. This is an opportunity for the New York Mets to bury the Atlanta Braves. If you go 5-2, 6-1, sweep the 7 games over this 10-game stretch. You put them 15, 16 games back with another 7 to 10 games off the schedule. So that means you're already at the halfway point, a little over the halfway point of the season, playing around 83, 84 games. And that gets you to the end of June. And a month before the deadline. The Braves have to, and the Braves with the wild card right now, the Braves are 7.5 games out of a wild card. So let's say you do really well over their 7 games, 5-2 and better. You kind of basically push them even further back in a wild card, further back to even a chance of the division. And it makes them think about what they might do at the deadline. You want the Braves to either stay pat or sell off a couple of lower pieces on their roster. You want them to forget about this year. That's what the Mets need to do. You need to let them worry about next year and not go after this year, because a good stretch for the Atlanta Braves against the New York Mets puts them right back into the mix. Because if the Braves have a good set of games against the Mets and the Phillies play well over this stretch along with playing the Mets can find themselves in second place and lead in a wild card spot, and the Braves right back in the mix, and that might incentivize them to go out on the deadline and get what they need to get themselves into the playoffs. And you know, because again, we play them we play them 13 times this year. That's 7 games. You still got another 6 games to go over the course of a season. Over the next 3 months of the season, when July comes around and August and September, you play them 6 more times. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be nerve-wracking. We're going to be at the edge of our seats because these games are so damn important. First time seeing Atlanta since last year as we won and clinched the playoff spot. So everything is coming to a head here. The Mets can bury the Atlanta Braves by playing well over these next 7 games against them. They have an opportunity here to hold the NL East by the throat. You play Philly another 3 times in between Atlanta this week, and you have the opportunity to hopefully increase your lead, hold your lead, and to bury the Braves. That is a lot that can happen over these 10-game stretch here. Now, if you go 5-5, I think it's kind of okay, considering the fact that the Braves are so far back that it's not going to hurt you either way with increasing your lead or decreasing your lead with the Atlanta Braves. You kind of those 10 games come off the schedule. You're halfway through a season, and the Braves are still where they were from today. That's one important aspect of it. But what you want to do is get out of this stretch leading the NL East. You don't want to be behind the Phillies. Not saying the Mets can't catch the Phillies again. Absolutely they can. But get it out of this 10-game stretch. Hitting the halfway point of the season after this 10-game stretch. Going into July, a month before the deadline, I think just incentivize it even more to go get what you need at the deadline. Whatever you think this team might need, go get it, right? I don't need another Paul Blackburn type. I don't need another bottom feeder bullpen arm that is not going to help this team overall, and not just in the season, but in the playoffs. I want to see really good, thought-out moves that are no-brainers for this team. It seems like nothing's really going to change more with this team of what we need. It's obvious what we need. We can always use another bullpen arm. That is always something that everybody can get on board with. Everybody can get on board with. You can always add another bullpen arm. It never hurts to have a better bullpen arm in the bullpen. Even if you want to get one really good high leverage arm and a lower level arm as well, maybe another lefty. Absolutely fine. I take that in a heartbeat. But we know what we need as an organization. We know as fans what we need. We see it on a daily basis. Now, some people didn't believe that we're going to need rotation or top line arm in this rotation come deadline, because I think people kind of were blinded by how well this pitching staff has performed in the rotation. I wasn't fooled by it. Like, they come out of the gate raging hot, and they were a big reason why the Mets are 45-27. I give them all the credit in the world. But look how fast it kind of just slowly trickled apart a little bit. Not saying that they're going to be terrible, but they're coming back to the pack. Yeah, they still lead with the best ERA in baseball, but it was a pretty wide gap. Now it's not that far. So I do think this rotation can be above average, but above average is not going to win you enough ball games during the season if your lineup doesn't pick it up. and play to the way we all expect them to. If they do that, different story. But I still concern myself with the pitches, with the rotation when it comes to the games that matter the most. And that is when you get to the playoffs. I gave the question to Chris. I gave the question to Hector yesterday. I gave it on multiple shows the last couple of days about what pitcher do you have the complete confidence in a game 7. Let's say everybody's rested. You could choose any pitcher you want for a game 7. Which pitcher are you absolutely confident in going on that mound that gives you the most confidence you can win a ball game with that guy on the mound? Now, a good enough people said David Peterson because he seems like he's been the guy that's been the bulldog, has been pitching the best, and is the one that feels like he can dominate a game and nobody would be surprised by it. But others, there's so many answers. People would say Manias, people would say Kodai Senga, some would say Griffin Cannon, whatever. There's so many different answers, regardless if Peterson has a little bit more of a higher percentage of people believing in him. There's so many different answers because there's not one guy you can pinpoint. There isn't that one guy, that one ace. And I go back and when people talk to me or say to me, hey, well, what is an ace? Well, I challenge that and say, go back to teams that made the World Series the last 5 years, regardless if they won it or not. Make the World Series, get into the World Series, and we can have that conversation. But go back the last 5 World Series, look at both teams that were in the World Series the last 5 years, and tell me that they didn't have an ace of their staff. That in the biggest game, they went with certain guys. Even if they had one ace, but they had another number 2 or number 3 that is very good to close to a top line starter. So they would have 1 or 2 guys. The Mets don't have that. It bit them in the ass last year. They don't have that right now. Do I think they can get through a season and you can make the playoffs with them? Sure. A lot of things happen during the season. Right? Because when you get to the playoffs, you shorten your roster a little bit, right? You don't use every guy out of your bullpen. You're going to use your high leverage guys most of the time. And that maybe become maybe 4 or 5 guys, not 7 through 9. You're not using that many guys in the bullpen. So you're counting on your starters a little bit more to get a little bit deeper into a ball game. So you don't have to go, you can use your high leverage guys in any instant. Any moment. I don't have the confidence in that. I don't have confidence in Kodai Senga. If you want to have confidence in Kodai Senga, by all means, I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to feel, but I don't. This guy, it's a grade 1 strain, and he's going to be out at least 5 weeks. 5 weeks. That's ridiculous. And that's only an average time period because that's just an average time frame. This is Kodai Senga we're talking about. Not only does he have to get healthy, he got to have his mechanics on point. He's got to feel right. We're not going to see him probably until August, and that is the God's honest truth. Everybody's like, oh, we'll probably come back after the All-Star game. Nonsense. You're going to see him in August, and that's if everything goes right. So don't expect him until probably the 1st to 2nd week of August. That's what I'm thinking of. And hopefully by then, Mania and Montaz is healthy and in this rotation, and that could help a bit for sure. But I don't trust Kodai Senga as far as I can throw him. When it comes to Griffin Cannon, he's a guy that I know he can give you innings. He's pitched really well this year. He's had a tough couple games in a row. But what do we expect Griffin Cannon to have under 3 ERA the whole time? He's Griffin Cannon for crying out loud. His best year was a 3.99 ERA. That's where I expect him to be. Even if he's become a better pitcher, I don't expect him to go from a last year 5 ERA to an under 3 ERA. I expect him somewhere to level out and be between a 3.5 to 4 ERA pitcher. That is not somebody, because as of right now, he might be throwing in a game 4 of a series, or maybe even a game 3 of a series in the playoffs. That spills confidence in a pitching staff? Not me. Clay Holmes, who the hell knows? Is Clay Holmes going to be anywhere near as good as he is now in the playoffs, or even at the end of the year during the season, when he hasn't pitched that many innings in his career? When he gets to that 150, 160 pitch innings limit, innings number, and we expect him to be exactly or close to what he was this year so far? I mean, there's a lot to think about here. That's why you got to go after some type of starting pitcher that is going to be an impact in your rotation late in the season, the final 2 months of the year after the deadline, and into the playoffs. Not a Paul Blackburn type, not a pitcher like that. Because a Paul Blackburn type doesn't see the light of day in a postseason. He might be a long man in the bullpen. That's it. Somebody that you can put in the rotation, and he is going to start game 3 or 4 of that series. That's an impact pitcher. That's what I want to see. But all this, in my opinion, starts the real season today. 10 games over the next 10 days against the Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies. Your division rivals. You and the Phillies are battling it out in the NL East. The Braves are trying to hold on for a season, to even have a season. The Mets have an opportunity here to bury the Atlanta Braves and make them think about being sellers or staying pat at the deadline. You don't want them to have an itchy finger and think that they have a chance of winning and making the playoffs, divisional wild card, and make them be aggressive at the deadline. I want them to either stay pat or be sellers at the deadline. Now, they're not going to sell a lot of their main guys, but they might sell a couple of bullpen pieces. They might trade a couple of, lower level roster guys on the roster to other teams because they don't feel like they're going to make it this year. That's what I want them. I want them to be demoralized after this 7-game stretch against the Mets. I want him to think about selling at the deadline. Because it seems like every time we think the Braves are kind of out of it, the Braves win a couple of good series against the Mets. It was happened a couple of years ago in 2022. We all remember that. What happened? The Braves were kind of on the fringe of being sellers or buyers. It was 2 weeks before the deadline. The Mets played them 7 times, or I think it was like 6 or 7 times over like a 2-week stretch. And the Braves basically won almost every game. I think they were like 6-2 in that time frame, and it pushed them over the hump of going for it at the deadline. And they did it, and they ended up winning the World Series. So little things like that can happen very quickly. The Mets need to avoid that. The Mets need to find a way in this mini slump of theirs, coming off of their first sweep of the year, of getting swept. They need to stop the losing streak at 3, win game 1 of this series with your best pitcher on the mound at this point in your rotation, where this is probably the only game I'm very confident in a pitcher in this series. But one thing that needs to happen for all of this to work out, in my opinion, is for this lineup to finally dominate a series, which we haven't seen this year. We saw glimpses here and there throughout this season so far, but nothing close to dominating a series where the offense just put the team on its shoulders, put the pitching staff on their backs, and just dominate a series and saying, we got this. This is the Juan Soto moment, which he has great numbers against the Braves and at Truist Park. I mean, outstanding numbers. Hopefully he can do that this series because that would be very nice. Alonso's got to keep on doing what he's doing. Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, it's about time for this offense, for these top 5 guys in this lineup, to be the reason why the Mets win a series, not the pitching. I mean, if it happens that way, great. I don't think the pitching is going to be the reason why we win this series. It's going to be about the bats. If the bats don't show up and they've been struggling with runners in scoring position and with runners on base, and it continues through this series, I'm going to be very blunt with you guys. In my opinion, they're not winning this series. That's the God's honest truth. I don't think they're going to win this series if the offense does not come alive. The pitching is not good right now. Everybody's took a step back except for David Peterson. Clay Holmes hasn't. He just got taken out early, which I hope the Mets don't do that this time. But I just don't feel like the pitching is going to dominate this series. I think it's going to be the Mets offense that needs to do it. With that said, guys, we got about an hour and a half until game time. I appreciate you guys tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show. The Mets lineup for tonight is Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, Alonso, McNeil, Young, Alvarez, Mauricio, Taylor. You don't see Brett Beatty in the lineup because he has a little issue with his hamstring, and Mauricio is taking his spot for today's game. Interesting to see Young is in the lineup at DH, which I think the whole Brett Beatty situation and the injury kind of forced Mendoza's hand to put Mauricio at third and put in Young, who I don't mind putting Young at the DH spot only because, you're looking for some type of offense. And what's the quickest way to a couple of runs is a ball over the wall. And Young can provide that. And I think that's the reason that Young is in the lineup over other guys that could possibly DH. So we're in Truist Park. We're in the field that we call the House of Horrors. The Mets did slay the Dragon yesterday by beating the Braves to make the playoffs. But first time this year we're playing the Atlanta Braves. The Mets are 45-27. We got David Peterson on the mound against Spencer Swellenbach. Guys, enjoy the game. There will be no post game today, but enjoy the game. Let's go Mets. And hopefully tomorrow we are talking about a Mets W going into game 2. Have a good night, guys, and let's go Mets.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, repping both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Hear 'em all loud, let the anthem flow.